Hi friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and if you're new here, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jenna, and today I'm going to be talking about how I got into the Disney College program on my very first try. The Disney College program is like a 4 to 6 month internship program for students and recent graduates to have the opportunity to live, work, and play in the Disney parks. You have the option of doing it as credit, like academic credit for school, which is awesome, but it also is a paid internship. Yeah, that's just like a quick little description of the Disney College program. So for a little bit of context, I graduated college in December 2018, so I wanted to do the Disney College program spring 2019. So when all of my friends and my boyfriend were finishing their last semester of college, I wanted to spend that semester doing the Disney College program. So I felt like if I didn't do it spring 2019, then there was no point in me doing it fall 2019, because I'd have to leave whatever job I was working at, and it would be like having to retransition all over again and yada yada yada. So yeah, I felt like I had one shot to do it right, and I put my heart and soul into researching this college program, and I really feel like I picked up some tips and tricks along the way that could help you guys. This in no means is like a guarantee that you're going to get into the program. Every single application is different, every single person is different, and every single season is different. So just because this is stuff that worked for me doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to work for you, but they're good things to know ahead of application season. I think it's important to talk about this process in 3 parts. So first, before the application, second is the application process, and the third is after the application, what comes next. So in terms of what you can be doing before the application actually goes live to prepare yourself, first and foremost, do your research as much as you possibly can, which if you're watching this, you're doing it already. So if you're in the stage of like preparing for the application to go live, join a Facebook group and follow the Disney recruiters on Twitter. That's if you use social media. If not, no worries. But if you do that, joining a Facebook group allows you to just connect with the other prospective participants and even former participants to answer any questions. It's really great if you have any like resume questions specifically, or you just want someone to read over your resume that doesn't know you personally. It's a good way to get like an outside perspective, especially if it's someone who's done the program before. Again, take everything at face value because no one actually knows how Disney decides who gets in and who doesn't, but it's pretty beneficial. And then also following the Disney recruiters on Twitter is good because they'll sometimes tweet out like tips here and there that you wouldn't think of. The next step is to determine, does your school offer credit? This is more important than deciding where you want to go, what roles you want, blah blah blah. Because if your school doesn't accept the Disney College program as academic credit, then you're gonna have to like take a semester off. So that's another reason why I wanted to wait until after I graduated in December, because I wouldn't have to take a semester off, but I would technically be like within my 4 years of college, if that makes sense. But I know plenty of people at my school that took a gap semester, took a gap year to do the college program, and that's totally a viable thing for you to do as well. You do not have to graduate in 4 years. If the college program is something you want to do and your school doesn't accept the credit, and that's not a big deal to you, still do it. It's an opportunity that you shouldn't let like school credit depict whether you should do it or not. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so you've decided that you want to do the program. You've figured out whether your school accepts the credit or not. Next, it's time to determine when and where you want your program to take place. So there's the option of having it both at Disney World and Disneyland. On your application, you can choose one or the other, or you can choose to apply to both, and then wherever they pick you is where you go. In terms of seasons, there is a fall and a spring application drop. So it happens twice a year, the application comes out. The exact dates and timing are different every single year and for each of the 2 programs, so I don't want to give specific dates. I'm just going to tell you about my personal experience. So I applied for the Spring Advantage 2019 season and the Spring 2019 season. So at Walt Disney World, there are 2 seasons, like within a season, sort of. So for my year, the Spring 2019 season went from about January to May, and then the Spring Advantage season went from January to August. I wanted to be there longer, so I chose the longer program. However, when I applied, I did check off to be considered for both seasons. So if there wasn't enough room for Spring Advantage, I still wanted to be considered for Spring and vice versa. And I did that for the locations as well. So I pretty much was like, put me wherever you want. I want to work here. Please take me. I will do anything. And they took me. So that's not like a strategy or anything. I just really had no preference at all. But if like a specific area only works for you or a specific time frame only works for you, it's totally okay to just apply for one thing. You don't have to apply to all of them. I just want to put that out there. So here's the part where I think people would say to start working on your resume. And that's true. You should always have your resume in mind. However, I think it's first important to look at the list of roles available for your season, because Disney includes keywords depending on the role. So Disney has four keywords. It's safety, courtesy, show, and efficiency. Those 4 words are like the guiding principles to being a cast member. It's like the code of conduct. And this isn't a Disney secret that I'm giving out or anything. This is something that I researched a whole bunch and I found before I even applied to the DCP. And I will say that I think knowing and understanding those words definitely helped me in my application and my interview process. The reason why I say look at the available roles and their job descriptions before working on your resume is because it's important to, this goes with any job also, not just the DCP, but it's important to include words and phrases in your resume that are in the job description. For example, I worked as a bank teller when I was in high school, so I had cash handling experience. On my original resume, did not include the words cash handling experience at all, because that was not a phrase that I was familiar with. But applying to the DCP, looking at the job descriptions, I saw that merchandise roles required cash handling experience. So I went back to my original resume and I included, as a bank teller, cash handling experience while assisting customers with transactions. I'm not lying, I wasn't fibbing, I wasn't adding anything that wasn't already there. I was just using the language that Disney looks for. There is a little bit of a rumor, again, it's not confirmed because no one knows how this process works, but there's a rumor that the first round of the application process is filtered by like an automatic computerized system. So the rumor is that the system searches for keywords, and if you don't have those keywords, you're automatically NLIC'd. Some people say like NLIC'd or something. I've heard weird abbreviations, but I say NLIC'd. I'm gonna put it down here. It means no longer in consideration, basically a rejection letter in a really nice Disney kind of way. This is probably a little overboard, but what I did is I tried to include guests as opposed to like families or the word customer if it was applicable. So as a bank teller, we don't call them guests, like they are customers, so I did leave that as customers. But I had a few other roles in admissions at my college where I originally had like greeting families upon arrival or whatever. But if there is a Disney computerized system for the resumes, they're gonna look for the word guests because that's what we call them at Disney. So I went back and I changed those kinds of words to like, so instead of greeted families as they entered, I said like greeted guests as they entered. Okay, so this is not 100% necessary, but I will say that it benefited me. I familiarized myself with the roles that Disney offered, obviously because I wanted to include keywords in my resume, but also because on the written application, you will be asked to express interest in every single role. What I did was I listed out every single role that was on the website and I put next to it how I felt about it. And this is a list that like I revised several times, which is another reason why I think it's beneficial to do it before the application comes out. By the end, I came up with, you know, my like top 3 or 5 roles, and that way I also had that like sorted out if the recruiter asked me, if I got a phone interview, if the recruiter asked me where I wanted to work. The roles offered every season vary. I would just search up like Disney College Program roles and then the year that you're looking at applying. And I familiarized myself with all those roles because on the written application, you will be asked to, for each role, to put high interest, moderate interest, low interest, or no interest. People say that if you put no interest in even one role, you are automatically NLIC'd. Can confirm that is not true. And I know that because I put no interest in several roles. People say to like counter putting no interest, put low interest. I would not recommend that because for me, for example, I put no interest in custodial. I've heard it's an amazing role, but I am squeamish around certain things, so I knew it wouldn't be a good role for me. But if I put low interest in that, it's still expressing a small amount of interest, so there is a chance I could still be placed there. As opposed to me saying no interest, it sort of takes me out of the running for that role, if that makes sense. This is the last thing I'll say about roles. Something to note is that any interest, even if it's low interest, is still showing Disney you are interested in. Okay, so basically key takeaways are: do your research, decide where you want to apply, decide when you want to apply, figure out if your school accepts credit, and then figure out if this program is right for you. And that's mostly just by watching videos, reading blog posts, things like that. So here comes the big part of the video. The main part of this whole process is the application, obviously, but the application is broken down into several steps. I could literally do a video on just each step individually, and if you want to see that, please let me know. But for today, I'm going to try to be as detailed as possible, but just know that there's a lot going into each of these steps. All right, so the application is broken down into 3 parts. The first part being the written application, followed by the WBI, or the web-based interview, and then finally ending with the phone interview. That concludes the whole process, and then from there you would get an offer. It's important to note that any time during this process you can receive an NLIC. I applied on August 20th, 2018. That's the day that the application came out. The very same day, I want to say like an hour later, maybe like 30 minutes to an hour later, I received an email for the WBI. The WBI web-based interview, I'm going to talk all about in 1 second, but it's basically a questionnaire. You complete the questionnaire, and then you find out as soon as you hit submit whether you like passed or not. I passed, which means I was able to move on and schedule my phone interview. I scheduled my phone interview for August 26th. And then that's basically it from there. Once you get to the phone interview, it's not an immediate notice. It's really just a waiting game. All right, so now for the actual breakdown. The written application is exactly what it sounds like. It's like a normal job application. It's like your name, it's all your background information, all of your job information, previous work experience. But what I forgot is that it can actually be filled out before the actual application goes live. So you can't fill out everything. Like you can't put in your role interest and things like that, but all of your work experience, all of your personal information that like they are gonna want on file, like your email address, your phone number, your mailing address, things like that. All of that can be filled out before the application even drops, which I highly suggest doing because it allows you to review the application for days, weeks, whatever beforehand, because I know on application day I was super nervous, and had I not filled it out beforehand, I probably would have made some like silly mistakes like typos or like left out some previous roles that I've held. So it's super helpful to do it beforehand. The stuff on the written application that you do have to do the day of, I believe, is the role ranking, which I explained earlier in the video. And then that's most of it, honestly. You can find here on YouTube a bunch of videos of people like doing the application live, like on camera, or people who have like screenshots of them doing their application. I highly suggest watching those videos. It kind of eases like makes you a little less nervous about it, seeing what it's going to look like beforehand. So I will link some videos down below that I watched and that really helped me, and then some more recent ones. That's basically it for the written app. The rest of it's just like yes or no questions, like are you like legally authorized to work in the United States? Are you 18 years or older? This is also where you'll like upload your resume, things like that. So the next part of the application process is the WBI, the web-based interview. This is essentially a personality quiz. I'm sure Disney wouldn't want to call it that, and I'm sure they don't call it that, but that's a good way to think of it. It's basically to see if you and your character are going to be a good fit for the Walt Disney Company. And you kind of have to like remember what you put. So if you lie on this thing, it's a lot of memorization, and I really don't think it's possible. You only have like 15 to 30 seconds per question, so it's really like a go with your gut kind of thing. Some of the questions are like, would you ever be late for work? Yes or no? And then later on, they might say like, how often are you late for work? You see what they do there? So if you first say, I'm never late for work and I would never even think about it, but then later on you say, I'm probably late like 3 days a week. Disney caught you. They caught you. Take your time, answer honestly, basically a giant personality quiz. Be consistent with your answers, but be honest with your answers. After the web-based interview, you will find out, I think it's immediate, whether you passed or not. I pretty much got an email right away that says like, congratulations, schedule your phone interview here. So you'll kind of get like a series of days and times that are available. You pick what's best for you, and then you just wait until your interview comes around. On the day of the interview, which is the last part of the application process, it is a phone interview. You will get a number, most likely from a blocked caller ID, and that is Disney. Some tips for the phone interview. Remember the recruiter's name. If they break up a little bit, or if you like didn't catch what they said, it is 100% okay to say, you know, I apologize, I didn't quite get that. My name is Jenna. What's your name again? Totally fine to do that. But know their name, write their name down, because at the end of the interview, you will want to thank them by name, because Disney is huge on names, literally so big on names. So at the end of the interview, you say, thanks so much for your time, so-and-so. Have a great day. Hope to hear from you soon. You want to include their name. It's super important. There are a list of like DCP prep phone interview questions you can find online. I don't know if anyone else gets like this, but sometimes on interviews, I get asked questions that I have to think about. And instead of like pausing and thinking about them, I will literally say, ooh, tough question, or like, ooh, good question. And like that just, to me, I'm sure it feels like I'm stalling, because I am. So I wanted to be a little more prepared going into it. So I wrote down the questions that I thought I would have to think a little bit more about, and kind of prepared some answers ahead of time. Did it help me? Yes. Did I read directly from my script during my interview? No, because you don't want to sound scripted. You want it to sound like a conversation, because that's what the recruiters want. They just want it to be a conversation about you and like your passion for Disney, and your passion for working for Disney. Have some questions prepared for the end of your interview. Again, these are just like basic interview steps, but for a lot of people, this might be your first real job interview. So have questions prepared at the end of your interview. Try your best not to make them like basic questions, not just like, I'm sure they get all the time, like, what's your favorite part about working for Disney? Or like questions that can be answered by reading the job description. You probably shouldn't ask like, how much is this paid? Or things like that. I had two. Okay, these are actually not that bad. So my first one was, how did you begin your career with Disney? And the second question I asked is, if currently you could be on any Disney ride in any Disney park around the world, which would it be and why? Some other tips I have for you: smile. I know it seems silly to smile being on the phone with someone, but you can hear it on the other side of the phone. Don't be afraid to ask them to repeat the question. You don't want to like start to answer a question that they didn't ask because you heard them wrong, because then it seems like you're not listening. So if it's like a bad connection or something like that, 100% feel free to ask them to repeat it. That's okay to do. Also know that they can call 15 minutes before or 15 minutes after your scheduled time, and then the interview can last like I think on average they're like 20 to 30 minutes, but I have heard people whose interviews are like 45 minutes to an hour. So you really want to like block off. Disney recommends an hour. I would honestly say like an hour and 15, like an hour and a half, just to be safe. Something I wish I'd done on my phone interview, so I guess this is kind of like a tip too. A lot of people say that they get their dream role because the recruiter asks them like, what are your top 3 roles? Or like, what are your top 3 locations? So I had that prepared ahead of time. I had it written down. I knew what I was gonna say. And my recruiter never asked that, which they are 100% not required to ask you anything. But that is where I could have stepped in and said, I was wondering if we could talk about my top 3 roles, you know? Know that you have every right to do that. This is an interview, and you want to make sure that Disney knows who you are. And if who you are is incredibly passionate about being a fairy godmother in training at the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, then like, tell them that, you know? Tell them that. So that's something I wish that I did, was steer the conversation to talk about my interested roles. So that's the general breakdown for like how the application process goes. I'm going to talk about another rumor. People say that the earlier you apply in the season, the more likely you are to get accepted. I don't want to say it's false, but I don't want to say it's true either. So let me explain. Say your top 2 roles are like attractions and front desk, okay? Those 2 roles are like coveted roles. So even though Disney doesn't have a maximum number of people that they're going to accept, they might only have 100 available attractions roles and 100 available front desk roles. Even though there's not a greater chance that you'll be like accepted because you applied the first day, there may be more likely of a chance for you to get the roles that you're interested in because they haven't filled up yet. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's more about the roles and less about the actual application. Because if you put attractions and front desk as high interest and then everything else is no interest, well, if you apply the last day that the application's open, those roles may already be filled up and you haven't expressed interest in anything else. So you might not get accepted. The recruiters will also tweet this at some point, like without fail, they always do. If you're applying later in the application season, you have to be a little more flexible in your role choice. Do your research. Know the buzzwords. Safety, courtesy, show, and efficiency. Take your time filling out the application and include those keywords in it, as well as key phrases from jobs descriptions that you may be interested in. Take your time with every other part of the process. Keep an open mind when filling out the roles. For the web-based interview, again, take your time. You know, be consistent, but be honest. Finally, for the phone interview, be yourself. So I believe you can have a status of submitted, under review, in consideration, interview, offer. At various points in this process, you can be held in like under review or in consideration, which are like kind of the same thing, but kind of different. Basically, that just means that like you're not rejected, but you're not 100% for certain gonna move on to the next step. It could literally mean anything, so don't stress about that at all. I don't know how to end this video. There's so much I want to say. If you have any questions, please leave a comment down below and let me know. I would love to answer them. I'd love to share more of my experience. And I hope this helps you, even if it's just a tiny bit. I hope this helps you like get an understanding of what it's like to apply for the DCP. Okay, I think that's it for today. I'm not going to talk anymore. If you're someone who wants to like read as opposed to watch, totally understand that. I'm like that sometimes too. You can read all about my DCP application journey over on my blog. jennasmagicallife.com is where you can find it, and I'll like have literally a whole series about applying to the DCP. I think I'm going to break it up into multiple parts so you'll have multiple sections to read. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, click here or here, and then you can subscribe right up there. Be sure to keep checking back for DCP videos because quite a few are coming your way, and I'll see you next time. Bye.